Hey, this is Dave with Taboo Customs. This video today, we're going to continue to look into why the heat does not work very well in this 2001 TJ, and we're going to go through flushing the heater core out in this TJ. All right, so what we've got going on in this Jeep is, if you watched our previous videos, this is a Jeep where the heat didn't work before. The controls up here were broken. We knew that, so we replaced the control panel. Control panel is now working fine. However, our heat is very lukewarm. You know, it's very cold right now. With the heat on the floorboard, you can barely feel that it's making any heat at all. So there's possibly a couple of things that could be going wrong. The blend door down here could be not functioning, and we'll show you that in a second, how you might be able to check that. Or more likely, the heater core is plugged up because, you know, this is a over 20-year-old vehicle now, and the heater core is probably potentially still original, so it's probably got a lot of gunk in it and something that's just blocking it. But first, let's talk about how you might be able to check this actuator down here that opens and closes that blend door. All right, so to test your blend door, and this is a 2001, so in others it may be different, but you've got, of course, the blend controller here in the middle. With the Jeep on, what you can do is you can change this, and your blend door should be moving. Now, where is the blend door? The blend door on this Jeep is right down here. You can see there, here's the actuator. The door is right above it. It'll be opening and closing. On this actuator, there's a little hole, and I'll show it to you a little bit closer in a second. But as you change that, for us, we can feel that blend door, because that is, I believe, the pivot for the blend door. The blend door is moving up there. So we do think it is moving back and forth. So that makes us believe that the blend door is actually functioning. Now, is it actually opening and closing? It could be broken above this. That we don't know, but we do know that at least this is trying to move the blend door. So let me show you a little bit better and reposition the camera. All right, so now we've got the camera basically sitting on the floorboard, looking up at that actuator. You can see the hole in the center. So with one hand and the Jeep is on, I am going to change the actuator, or the blend, all the way to the other direction, the heat side, and I can actually feel this little piece here is moving back and forth. I don't know if it's able to be seen on the video, but I can feel that it is moving as I change that, and I can actually also feel that the temperature of the air coming out does change. However, like I said, the air coming out is lukewarm. It's definitely not warm enough for the -degree temperatures that we're experiencing right now. All right, so let's look at the plumbing of the heater core before we get started flushing it. Now, this is a 2001, but I believe most TJs are set up roughly the same. However, there's a good chance that you might be a little bit different, and I'll tell you why. Now, this upper hose here, there will be two hoses running to the heater core. One will be coming out of the top of the thermostat. One will be going down to the water pump itself. Now, typically these hoses are two different size. One, for instance, will probably be 3/4. The other one will probably be 5/8. Now, typically, from what I have seen and read and everything, normally the larger hose goes to the bottom port of the heater core, but a lot of people have reported that that's not the case on their Jeep. It goes to the top, and this Jeep is no different. The input, which is the larger hose coming from the thermostat, is running to the top port on our heater core, and you know, feeling the ports, it does not feel like the bottom port is the larger port. So I am guessing that this is plumbed correctly. However, now that we have been running the Jeep and I've got it up to heat, this is the supply line coming from the thermostat, because I can tell that the temperature of this top line right now, with just measuring it with a simple heat gun, is about 160, 170, whereas the bottom one, which should be the return coming out of the heater core, is running about 100 degrees, so it is quite a bit lower. Now, you should see some drop off if this is working correctly. However, I venture to guess that that drop off is a lot more than what we would normally see with a full amount of flow through there, but hopefully we will see some change once we get it flushed. So let's get started with that. So of course, first thing we've got to do is pull these hoses off. So we've waited for the vehicle to cool down pretty well, and now we're going to go ahead and pull them off. Now you've got a couple of options. Of course, when you pull these off, chances are coolant's going to come out, so you can get clamps that actually go in here. We'll clamp off of those. You could have something ready to kind of plug it up. For us, you know, we're not too worried about spilling on the floor right here, so we're going to go ahead and take these off and just kind of stick them up out of the way. A lot of times, you know, you're not going to get a ton that runs out, but if you're concerned about it, you know, you can do what you need to. Might have varying styles of hose clamps on here. I think stock, it would have came with the spring clamp. These have, you know, your standard, you know, type of replacement screw style clamps. So we'll get that top clamp off of there. What we're going to do then is we'll gently grab that hose with a pair of channel locks, and we're going to break the seal by twisting it a little bit. So once you break that seal, it'll be a whole lot easier to try to pull that off. So twist, pull it off. I didn't say it'd be all completely easy, but just easier. Just twist as you pull off. Almost there. And there we go. And actually the majority came out of the heater core rather than the hose, so. One thing you can also check that you coolant is full. If you are low on coolant, that could also cause a similar sort of condition. You also could have a bad thermostat. However, this Jeep has no overheating issues. I'd probably expect to see some overheating issues if I had a bad thermostat, but we've had no overheating issues with this Jeep during the summer, so yeah. Do not dump water down your transmission. That'd be bad. So as we were discussing, you know, a lot of people report that, you know, the in, which is the larger hose, is often on the bottom, but on this one, this heater core, it's on the top. So don't know if that's a replacement heater core or from the factory. At some point they changed it, but you know, whatever it is, I would go ahead and put your larger hose, which should be the thermostat hose, the in hose, on the larger port for your heater core. All right, so now we're set up to begin flushing. Before we do, we'll take a look at the setup we have. So we've got two clear hoses. One is a 3/4 inch ID hose, one is a 5/8 ID hose connected to our larger and smaller ports on the heater core. Then at the end, and this is, you know, this is kind of up to your preference, we use a hose barbed end that then connects to basically a female garden hose connection. You could use a male garden hose connection, depends on how you're going to set it up, but we will go ahead and we'll put links in the description to these items if you wanted to go to Amazon and purchase them. But we use this female hose end because we will also, on the end of our garden hose, just use the standard spray gun attachment, but one that, you know, can have an end threaded to it so that we can control the water here at the Jeep and not over at the spigot, so it'll be a little bit easier. However, you do want to be careful. The heater core does not typically see the same amount of pressure that a garden hose is capable of putting out, so we'll kind of ease into pushing the water through that heater core. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start first by back flushing. So we'll be hooking up the smaller hose to the garden hose, flushing water backwards through the heater core, and then we will hook up the normal inlet hose to the heater core to the garden hose, flush some water through it that way, and then we will one more time back flush through there, and then at that time we'll just make sure that we don't have any additional crud coming out of that heater core. Before we do the second flush, I'd want to say that is the dirtiest heater core I've ever flushed. That water is nowhere near green. I mean, it is yeah, that's pretty nasty. So a lot of crud built up in a heater core. All right, we've ran around 7 gallons of water through this, and like I mentioned, it was pretty bad. After dumping the bucket out, you can kind of see, it might be hard to see in the light, there's a lot of calcium buildup on the inside of there, and you probably saw the hose jumping a bit. So what we were doing is, what's nice with that gun with doing this is you can pulse, so you can try to dislodge a lot of that. So we ended up running quite a bit more through than on some others, just because we did continue to see chunks of that buildup coming out of the hose as we went through the first bucket and into a second bucket full of water. So now the next step is we'll go ahead, we'll rehook up our hoses, we'll start it up, let it get to temperature, and we'll be back and talk about what temperature we're at now. Well, success. We did start the Jeep up. It got up to its normal operating temperature, and we did see a big increase in the temperature on the return line coming from the heater core. The supply line stayed roughly the same, 160, 170, right around that range, checking with the little infrared thermometer. On the return line, though, previously we were like 90 to 100, I think, and now we measured points where we were up to 145, coming really close to 150, and that was with the heater in the Jeep on and on low, so some heat should be getting pulled out of that coolant as it went through the heater core. So then, checking out just the heat in the Jeep, it does feel much warmer, puts out a lot more air, definitely a lot more hot air than it had before, so a success there. However, but this success becomes a dose of reality, and that is that whatever is in the heater core is probably in our radiator as well. And this Jeep, as I mentioned, got up to its normal operating temperature, and that's because we noticed this Jeep runs a little bit warmer than some of our past TJs. And during the summer when we were running it, we really noticed it because it'd get up over 210, and it'd get to the point to where we were a little bit concerned about it, but it never really had an issue of going much past that or overheating or anything. However, being that what we saw come out of the heater core and how bad it was, we can almost be guaranteed the radiator has some of that in it, and we're going to need to do a flush on the radiator once it becomes warmer weather out there. So keep that in mind as you go through this. If your heating core is really plugged up and got a lot of gunk in it, all that stuff is probably in the radiator as well. So thank you for watching. As always, a like or subscribe is greatly appreciated. You can visit taboocustoms.com to buy any of our products from Taboo Customs, such as rust repair kits or skid plates. And remember that there's a link in the description to some of the pieces that we were using today if you are looking to purchase those.